there, everybody. This is Brian Fink from the Church of the Resurrection with a word from the DCC. And starting this week, for the next who knows how long, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a walkthrough of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I'm going to call it a journey here and back again, or something like that, to pique your interest and help you realize how fascinating and compelling the Catechism is. I jest in part, although it's true. Part of the reason I wanted to do this, and we talked about it in the parish, is that having a grounding in the knowledge of the faith is not incompatible with having an encounter with Jesus Christ, and that we ought never favor one over the other. In the end, our goal is communion with the Lord in heaven for eternity. But knowing Him happens on many different levels. And in a particular way, as we see a kind of increasing hostility toward the faith and toward knowledge of the faith, it's all the more vitally important that we as faithful Christians understand what we believe, that we profess it well, and that we live it well. So I'm going to take the Catechism systematically. It's going to take a while. There are several thousand paragraphs, but I'm going to try and cut off a chunk at a time, make it approachable and accessible. So here we go. We're going to start with the very beginning, paragraphs 1 through 25. And essentially, the very beginning starts out with the prologue. Essentially, what is the purpose of our existence? Why do we exist? And the Catechism will say in the very, very first paragraph that the purpose of a person's life is to know and love and serve God. It's kind of a reference, a hearkening back to the Baltimore Catechism, which is this question and answer form that talks about knowing, loving God in this life so that we may be with Him forever in the next. And that God reveals Himself to us in many ways, through creation, through the prophets, and in the fullness of time through Jesus Christ. And that revelation, that God's revealing Himself to us, is our receiving of that and then our sharing it in evangelization, where Christ sends out the apostles. And the apostolic tradition, the thing that is distilled by the apostles, handed on from generation to generation, the Catechism calls a treasure, that we, the faithful, and in particular the successors to the apostles, must hand on and guard. And yet all of us, all the faithful, are called, the Catechism says, to hand on this treasure from one generation to the next through three things. First, by professing the faith. And that's actually the first part of the Catechism, the first large section. Second, by living it out in fraternal sharing. And that's kind of the second part of the Catechism, is the life of the church, the life of faith. And then third, by celebrating it in liturgy and in prayer. And that's the third part of the Catechism. And fourth part particularly looks at the sacramental life of the church and the life of prayer. So the handing on of the faith is what we call catechesis. It's the Catechism will say it's the name that's given to the totality of the church's efforts to make disciples. And it reflects itself in several key points of the pastoral mission of the church, namely the proclamation of the kerygma, which is the core teaching of the faith, that we need Christ, that Christ came, He saved us, He died for us, He rose from the dead, He calls us to union with Him in a life of faith and joy. The examination of the reasons for belief, the experience of Christian living, the celebration of the sacraments, the integration of each person into the ecclesial community, and apostolic and missionary witness. So the Catechism now, well, in doing so, says, what's the point of this actual text, this actual Catechism? And I wish I had one here. That would be a better prop, but I do have some somewhere. Trust me. It says particularly that the Catechism's aim is to present an organic synthesis of the essential and foundational contents of Catholic doctrine as regards faith and morals in light of the entirety of the Church's tradition. That's a mouthful. I'll try and put up a screen with a little slide that shows you what that is. Finally, the structure of the Catechism, which I alluded to earlier, begins with the profession of faith, going through the creed, I believe one God, Father, Almighty, Creator, heaven and earth, visible, invisible, etc. Then you have the sacraments of the faith. So I got that wrong the first time. The sacramental life comes next. Our incorporation into the life of faith and our receiving of God's life through the grace of the sacraments. The third is the life of faith, how that's lived out in a community, in our families, in our parishes, etc., in the workplace. And finally, the life of prayer. So that's the basic structure. And the idea in sum is that the Catechism attempts to present the faith as an organic whole, so that every part is connected to every other part. So that's 1 through 25 in a nutshell. And I hope over the next several weeks to just work my way through the Catechism, help you access it, and be able to kind of distill what's going on in there. But I do want to say, if you have questions, please do put them in the comments. If there are particular things as you're reading through the Catechism that you find interesting or challenging, please do let me know. I'd love to share and have a dialogue with you. So I think that's it for now. Thanks very much. God bless. What do you think, Edie? Did we get it? Yeah, your dad's good. One take. That was it.